Up next is a snippet of a conversation I had with Sam Evans, aka Electric Viking, about what cars we like, from cheap to that Tesla dream. And it's fascinating to see how two YouTube electric car enthusiasts can both agree and disagree on what makes a good car great. Now, a quick favor before we get into this content, please give me a thumbs up so that I know to create more like this in the future. And whilst you're there, subscribe, it's really appreciated. And of course, as per usual, check out Sam's links below because he does some awesome content over there. Next week, I'll be in the brand new 2025 Tesla Model Y, so I hope to see you there. Otherwise, let's get into this video now.
So right now, mate, what you test electric cars on your channel, what would we say your three favorite at this point? Putting you on the spot. Putting you on the spot.
Oh, I hate you.
We can edit out any positive response.
It's all good. It's all good. Look, okay. Next week I'm going to be jumping the new Tesla Model Y, so that'll be exciting. I believe it's supposed to be very good from preliminary reviews, and it looks to be it definitely addresses a lot of issues I have in my Tesla Model Y. My Model Y is far from perfect, but that said, Tesla's got its electric sorted out. It's got its motors sorted out. It's got its app sorted out, and as much as I love and hate it, it has its interface sorted out. Yeah, so it's a good car to buy. Good car to buy. And I always take away that person who shall not be named. And I think that Tesla as a company and the people that make that car are very clever and should be supported. It's just unfortunate there's this guy who's just running around doing stuff that I don't like. Anyway, next one is, like, do I have all the money in the world here, mate? I do? Do I have all the money? Okay, cool.
Yeah. What about two that you would actually buy and one that is just wins a lottery?
Oh, win the lottery. Okay, win the lottery.
Yeah.
You know what? BMW do make good electric cars.
You reckon?
They do. And the thing with that, right? They definitely suffer, except for some of the newer ones where they're actually built on a bespoke electric platform. They've compromised them by transforming what was a petrol diesel thing to electric. All right.
It just cut out a minute there. Could you just say that again?
With the BMW vehicles, you know, they typically take the electric, you know, the petrol diesel platform and they convert it to electric.
Yeah.
But when it comes to pricing and features and actual build quality and the driving experience, they are a great car to drive. They've got everything thrown in them, from, you know, automatic self-parking that you can do through your mobile phone. You get out, you do the remote thingy from.
My Xpeng does that. And it's cheaper. Anyway, sorry, mate.
Right? Yeah.
You've test driven a few BMWs, and they're actually been pretty good in your experience.
Yeah, they're actually pretty good and price competitive, because unlike normal BMWs where it's kind of like, oh, you want tires? Okay, that's a fine option. Oh, you want an indicator? Oh, what BMW driver has an indicator anyway? So no, they fully load them. So you typically start up at the base level M2 level, and they've got all the smarts integrated into them already. And the app's good, the car is good, the build quality is good. They're just great cars, they really are. And I did like the Ioniq 5, but I feel that they've become a bit dated now. And I'm kind of curious to see what Hyundai's doing next. And I liked the Kia EV5, but God, it was thirsty. It was very thirsty. It was ridiculous. It had a bit of a slower charging speed, 140 kilowatts DC fast charge. That was disappointing. They didn't include the 800 volt architecture under the car, you know, so it couldn't actually charge very, very fast like the other cars they make. But otherwise, very price competitive. So now with the lower spec Model Y that's coming out that you can buy now, because the launch edition's $67,000, and that's what I talked about in my review, by the way. I should have put an asterisk around that. You know, the Kia EV5 undercuts that significantly, and sure, it's a very thirsty car, but I think for some buyers out there who only ever trust what they know, and they don't seem to want to go into, say, a Tesla for whatever reason that is, they want to go into a car that's got maybe a great warranty, has a dealership near them. They want that reassurance where something they're used to, and there's nothing wrong with going with Kia or Hyundai cars. Definitely I need to get into a bit more of those Chinese cars, because they're making some good quality cars, some excellent quality cars, like amazing. What about you? What would be your top three?
So what about your the BMW is your
Yeah, the big,
lottery, or go out and spend a bunch of money?
yeah,
For me, the Kia EV5 is just, my brain can't handle accepting or promoting or mentioning, because I just can't understand why the efficiency is so bad in comparison to my car and the Model Y.
Yep.
Using the same battery. So I mean, to be 20 to 30% less efficient than a Model Y with exactly the same battery in Germany, the BYD Blade battery. To me, it's an alarm bell saying, why the hell is that happening? So for me, I just write that one off. I think there's too many other options in that segment. If there was another options, and that was 3 years ago, I'd be saying this thing's great, but it's 3 years later. It's 3 years. To me, it's 3 years old. I have to say, I love the Xpeng, the X9, because it's a van that's actually within a price range people can afford. They're meant to be around 90,000 Australian dollars, which is about 60,000 US. That's meant to be the starting price when they come to Australia, approximately. And there's just nothing else out there that size. It's bigger than a Kia. It's got more interior space than a Kia Carnival. It's actually much more efficient even than a Kia EV5, which is much smaller. I love the seats in the back that fold down into the floor. The electric seats that just fold completely flat into the floor. And I want a vehicle like that where the boys I can fit our bikes and surfboards in, and we can just not think about it. And then also they can bring their friends in the car. So it sort of appeals to me, that kind of a vehicle. I think, even though people don't like vans or MPVs, but I think it's a cool MPV. So that's one of my favorite. I think one car, if you're looking in America, that one car we don't have that I think is really, really impressive, and I'm not a big fan of the company, but the Lucid Gravity seems to be a really good car from what I've seen.
Good point. We don't have a lot of good American cars out here that we need.
No,
right?
We don't. Lucid Gravity, I think, having that 450 kilowatt charging speed, it's a proper luxury car. That's probably the car they should have started with first, because the sedan market's dying. So hopefully that works for Lucid. We need some other EV companies in America to survive. So
Rivian. What's
Rivian
happened to Rivian?
Struggling at the moment, big time, aren't they?
Yeah.
I personally much prefer Rivian as a brand than Lucid, and many. I think the CEO is a good guy. I think he's intelligent, so I hope they succeed. But unfortunately, it looks like things aren't going well.
No.
Yeah.
It's a bit disappointing, because I got to say, of all the pickup trucks in America that you can buy right now, they're the most appealing ones to me. You know.
Yeah.
Can I just do? Yeah. Can I just do this for everyone for context? I'm going to put the Cybertruck right down here. In fact, if I can go low, I will.
I love the Cybertruck.
No. Just no.
If they come to Australia, man, I'll try and buy one.
No, don't do it. So it's a fridge. It's a bloody fridge on wheels. Yeah. So I don't know. We were fortunate to jump into it in Sydney at the Everything Electric show, and it's big, it's ugly, it's got nothing redeeming about it. It's a big no from me, mate. And then you got the Rivians up here, and unfortunately, I think the price themselves in a place that they can't be. And that's a mistake I think actually Tesla's making right now. I was disappointed in the Robotaxi. They should have actually announced the Model 2, or what it was supposed to be. It should have been a 5-door small hatchback, an affordable electric car, that $25,000 car they're talking about, not a 2-seater thing that's predominantly designed for taxiing people around. You can just look at any market where, let's say, the most successful 2-seater ever was the Mazda MX-5, and that's only sold tens of thousands of units, across in Australia anyway, across the decades it's ever been on sale. Because what do people want? They want people movers, they want SUVs, they want a hatchback. They don't want a 2-seat car, and so that was a real misstep, I feel, by Tesla to actually go down the cyber taxi route at the moment. Sure, there's going to be a market for that in the future, but make it my Model Y, allow all the owners to get our cars onto the network, and Tesla can take a cut of that, like Uber does with its drivers, right? Anyway.
Have you seen some of the latest videos of full self-driving
from America?
In the United States? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very impressive.
How far away do you think it would be from being commercialized?
I'll do the joke. 2 weeks. Anyway, sorry. No, I have no clue, because there was the last mention was supposedly Q1, Q2 this year in Australia. And
in Australia, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, no. So that was briefly mentioned. I think it was by Elon, late last year on X, and I don't like mentioning him at the moment, by the way. And then there was a brief heartbeat on the Australian website where it was actually on there for like not even a day, not available, but they changed the language around it and the way it was displayed. And then when people went back to do a double take, it was back to the usual.
I should clarify what you're saying though. Not getting full self-driving approved by the government, but Tesla vehicles being able to use that feature in Australia.
So supervised FSD.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so that was supposed to Q1, Q2 this year, but here we are. And I still don't think. I think it's a few more years. The if anything, right now, unfortunately,
that would be the Australian government, though, wouldn't it? Actually approving it.
Well, if we go with the supervised version, I think it is fine. Basically,
okay.
You still need to actually be doing the interventions and being available, yada yada.
Yeah.
I think it probably meets the test. But looking into what Tesla's trying to achieve now by going unsupervised, they're slating for Texas, ASAP. And so if I was a company, I'd be throwing all my resources to do demonstration proof of concept, which will have a better market value, will increase shareholder value, is going to make people sit up and really pay attention, because right now, to most of the world outside of America, it seems like a bit of a distant, it's never going to happen, is it? And if they could demonstrate it can and actually is very possible, that's them. People around the world will go, oh, geez, I better actually purchase it now just in case, right? Because you've seen the videos where some guys actually drove through a fake, coyote wall, testing out Tesla Vision, and it turns out hardware 3 versus hardware 4, there's actually a difference. You see the videos, and I think Tesla's got a bit of a liability on its hands, where some people who've got 2019 Tesla Model 3s, and I know some friends who do, if they're keeping their cars, they're going to have their cameras and their computers changed over.
Musk did say that, didn't he, that they would do that?
They would, and they'll honor it, but that's a real issue. It's a big issue, right? And so it won't surprise me that actually when they do successfully demonstrate proof of concept in Texas with unsupervised FSD, and then they start rolling it out in China, which maybe is supposedly next, or maybe in Europe, which is supposedly next, and Australia is down that pecking order. So who the hell knows? I mean, when do you think it will be?
Well, I think they will get approved in one state in America this year, based on the videos that I've been watching. I've watched probably 50 of them, and I think it's definitely safer than a human now, from what I'm seeing on average in the last month. I think that they will get approved this year, but before, I'm not saying it'll be next week, but some point in one state, not necessarily elsewhere. I think what'll happen is other states. What will happen is they'll get the data from the following, say, 6 months, 12 months from that state. Could be Texas, like you say. They'll be able to say, okay, it's involved in less crashes than humans are. Statistically, it's 50% safer. I'm not saying it's going to be never involved in a crash. It's impossible. I think they'll be able to say that. And then I think probably approximately 6 to 12 months after that, they'll be able to use that data to say, okay, California, other states where maybe their regulations, maybe not California, but other states will say, okay, it is safer. We'll start approving it. And it'll just have that gradual, and then the Tesla will say, okay, we've got enough data now. We've got cars in this state, this state, this state. And I think probably within 2 years, it'll be approved all across the United States. But the rest of the world, completely different story. I think that's a complete unknown. And I don't think anyone knows, because that's regulations in that country. That's different data, different traffic signs, drivers doing different things. I think they're years and years away from the rest of the world. But the main focus for me, the United States is still a massive market. I still think Tesla can make a lot of money from America. Right. I think approval for once, this would be my guess, approval for one state this year. Next year, they might get a few more states. And then by the end of that next year, they might get approval everywhere, because I'll be able to see, all right, it is safer than other humans, and it's about safety. So therefore, we'll approve it. And then eventually, they'll ban human drivers. That's what I think. I think probably 30 years from now, most Western countries will ban human drivers. That's my guess. It's not what I want, but I think it'll happen.
Yeah, because I don't know about you. I like driving.
Me too.
but I admit I make mistakes, and we all make mistakes. Exactly. Whereas
Yeah.
Computers, for the most part, they're dealing with an imperfect world, but they're also dealing in a perfect code, hopefully. And so for them, it's black and white. It's not I think this is what's going to happen. No, if there's actually a lot more certainty out there where a computer and another computer, maybe even having a conversation, I don't know, does it need to happen? But probably not. But if they're all obeying the road rules, actually, but you're
Yeah.
right, it will be safer to actually take the human out of the equation.
I'm sure you, like I, have seen so many drunk drivers, people going through red lights. Just there's often madness. I mean, the other day, I think I mentioned on the channel that I went to go through a roundabout and a car was going to T-bone he came through the roundabout at 60 kilometers an hour, would have killed one of my kids if I hadn't have seen it and stopped. So that's the kind of thing where I think, do I want that guy driving? No. Do I want to drive myself? I do want to drive, but if it has to be this way, then that's probably a better solution to prevent those. And the other thing is, mate, there is like 90-year-olds driving, and they shouldn't be driving a lot of, not all, some of them are fine, but some of them shouldn't be driving. And it is not a situation. Eventually, what is there, 1.4 million traffic deaths every year, I think, worldwide.
Really?
You could cut that down by 1 million by having cars that have, this better driving. It'll take a long time, but I think that's where we're heading.
Exactly. And ideally, and this is what I like to see, it's a good point you make there, is that if we have these cars that can drive themselves, then it means my parents will still have mobility and can get around. And that they're not then feeling isolated, and because they've got poor health and they can't walk to the shop or they can't ride, they are reliant upon their car. So their car can drive them to the supermarket, drive them, whatever. That's great. And so I agree. I can't have
Kids as well. My kids, I find it really hard because if they've got the sport on and they're meant to be at different places at the same time. I can't get them. It's really hard for me to get them there. And sometimes I just have to say, sorry, buddy, you can't do that because that's on at the same time. This would solve that. For single parents especially, solve it where you can get both of your kids to different sports and that it's going to be fine and they can get there and come back. I think that'd be cool. There's going to be heaps of stuff that'd be cool.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious on your perspective, because you've been able to drive, I think, over in China. A lot of the cars that have got realistically level for autonomy right now. That means to say you can even not pay attention, right? You can take your hands off. You don't need to look. You can actually use your mobile phone legally and the car will drive you. Is that correct?
It's correct. I'm not confident I would do that in any Chinese car right now. Now, I'm confident that the software is good, but I think Tesla's full self-driving software in the United States is leading. I know there's a lot of people who argue against that, but I think mostly they're coming from an emotional position of hating Tesla right now. But me, I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm not invested in Tesla. I'm not invested in any Chinese companies like I used to be. I'm just looking at it objectively. I do think Tesla's globally leading. If you just want to rank them, who's number one, it would be Tesla in America, not Tesla out of America or in China. And then I think second to them would be some of these other collaborations in China that you're seeing, which are very good. Now, I'm not saying they're not good. They're very, very good, but there's no way that I would not be looking and just going to sleep or anything like that. Not yet. Not yet. I think in a couple of years, absolutely, they're moving fast. I think in a couple of years, they will be able to. But getting those features approved, it'll be the same. Getting them approved outside of China will take a long time, like I think it will for Tesla. So I think in China, we're going to see within 3 or 4 years' time, there will be a lot of cars using that software. However, if you're looking at, say, BYD, I think you made this point on a video I watched about the God's Eye, which sounds great, but the God's Eye full version is only on their super $200,000 luxury cars. Right. So God's Eye B is on the mid-spec cars, and God's Eye C is on all the cars we can get. So I think it's going to be quite a while before we see that happen for the average BYD car, maybe 5 or 10 years. But that collaboration on the top level, I think BYD could quickly get up there. And that's another advantage that they'll have over their rivals, Toyota, of being the biggest car company in the world. Toyota have nothing in that area, full self-driving software. They're just way behind. If you actually think about BYD's collaboration on that full self-driving, and then you look at their 1,000 kilowatt charging, and then you look at their battery advantage and their economies of scale advantage. I mean, I don't see how anyone in their right mind could think that Toyota has any top car company can compete against that. I'm talking legacy automakers.
Yeah.
I think if you're invested in one of those other car companies, you're going to lose a lot of money. It's going to be massive blood losses. Just
Yeah. I'm curious actually what their savings are like in those, particularly the Japanese car makers. Do they even have the money to be able to pivot to electric, because they're ignoring it at their own peril? And they're going to have a very expensive catch up, and it'll be too late, I think.
As we know, Nissan does not have the money. Obviously,
they've been gobbled up, aren't they?
Nissan have all their debts rated at junk. So if they want to go out and try and get some money, it's going to be very hard for them to raise funds at this point. They say they can't pay their latest debt bond bill, which is $7.5 billion. So like you said, Nissan, no. Mazda, a very small company, and obviously they'll be massively affected by 25% tariffs because America is their most important country in the world. They're selling less than, 1 million cars a year. Subaru, 800,000 car sales a year. Obviously, they don't have the money. Toyota, they're the ones you'd be saying they do, right? But they also have $200 billion of debt.
Wow.
So if you could try and pivot, but then what are you going to add to that? Another 100 billion of debt? If you're the bank, are you comfortable giving that to a company that makes 1% of their cars are electric at this point in time?
Yeah.
I mean, some banks are already saying they won't give out loans to consumers for non-EVs. I mean, some banks are saying, so I think that's moving into the big investment world, where the banks are being more objective. There's less emotion from the banks. They're looking at the numbers and the data, where the trends. Okay, this year, global sales of EVs are up 30%. Where's the data heading? If a company is wanting to say we want to invest, $500 million in an engine plant, pretty good chance the bank's going to go, yeah, no, we're not interested in that, mate. So I think Toyota is going to have to go back to get financing, and they're going to say, okay, we want all this money, and the bank's going to say, well, you've got $200 billion on your balance sheet minus, and then Toyota's going to say, yeah, but we have this is what they do. They say, yeah, but we have a $300 billion worth of factories. That's what they actually put on their quarterly statements. They say all of our assets this much, but then the reality is, look what happens. Look what Hyundai did, right? Hyundai builds their car factory in China, cost them $1.4 billion. They didn't, basically, obviously they flopped in China, didn't really work. So they tried to sell the factory 2 years later, and they sold it for, what was it, 200 million?
Wow.
So they lost $1 billion on a brand new factory. So these factories are not worth anywhere near what these companies are saying they're worth. Their assets are way below what they say. That's a big risk, where they're going to have to do what General Motors has did last year. They revalued all their assets in China and had to write them down by $5 billion. That's what they'll have to do. Toyota will have to do the same thing. So they won't be in the same position they're in. So I don't think they can do it. Well, your point is to say they think overnight they can start making millions of EVs if people want them. But I don't think they have the capacity.
They don't. And I think, I remember watching the story about, I think it's a documentary, I doubt I can find it now, on the history of Tesla when they, Elon came in, 2007, 2006, when the Roadster was getting, being made, and they were using the Lotus back. And they were fortunate to be able to buy over in Fremont an ex-factory that was, abandoned, well, not abandoned, was sold off at a great loss to the company. But it then cost Tesla a lot of money to convert that to an electric line. And it's significant. You need to remove all the existing, tooling, all the machinery, everything needs to go, and you start afresh.
And they often have holes in the floor as well. They're like cut out of the concrete. It's not just like moving the machinery. You've got to do structural changes as well. Yeah. And they got that factory for, what was it, like 10% of the cost that it would have been to build it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that I think Tesla at the time did integrate where possible some of the existing robots for the welding and things like that, and some of the frames and the old then Roadster and then the Model S. But then they decided, you know what, we're wasting our money here. It's better actually we either go do our stamp press stuff, or let's actually get dedicated new lines in to build it, because we're wasting time and energy here.
Yep.
And that's the lesson. And I think the last plant that like Tesla built between Shanghai and Berlin, they cost them billions of dollars to get those. And sure, the shell is expensive. I understand that. I get that. But it's actually what goes inside it. And this is what this Toyota needs to do. And it's going to take a lot of moolah and a lot of time.
It is. And I think it's important to point out to anyone out there, you and I are not saying we love China, we love Chinese electric cars,
Yeah.
and people think that that's what's happening. We're actually just pointing out what's happening it's like being a journalist is to point out what's happening globally. It doesn't mean you support that.
Mm.
It just means that China
Yep.
is taking over the global automotive industry because they've invested so heavily into new technology, into new battery technology, into cars, and it's simply happening. The
Yep.
question is, how can we try to stop that? We don't want, and I've said this so many times, we don't want one country to own the means of production for such an important product, the
No.
automotive industry.
Yeah. And that's probably a great segue back to the original story here, is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
in Australia, we can make electric batteries. We have, I believe, 9 out of 10 of the elements needed to make EV batteries. So why
Here
don't we?
in Australia.
Yeah, here in Australia,
Yeah,
and we're the
yeah.
largest supply of everything needed. And Australia, Tesla buys stuff from us in Australia.
Yeah.
Why aren't we putting the batteries here, for goodness sake?
Mm.
There's talk about over in WA about a service facility over there for batteries, without the reconditioning, basically. Recently in South Australia, same, 100 jobs there. But no, let's think bigger. Let's get industry involved in that. And can I just pick up on a point you made before? Probably important one. I have no Tesla shares. I support the mission and what the people in it, and so yeah. Anyway, and yeah.
What you said before, Robin Denholm, the chairman of Tesla, she's been begging the Australian economy, Australian business, and the Australian public and the government to invest in exactly what you said. She's saying, we have these raw materials here. We should be at least refining them in this country, and we're losing that. We're setting them out at the very raw, unprocessed point. We're losing the ability to add value.
Yep.
Even if we didn't make batteries, there is still a lot of other opportunities that we could be taking advantage of. And it's important to point out, people still think the reason we can't do this in Australia is because wages are so high. And that is a good point. It's a really good point. But they forget the fact that in China, and not just China, but other countries now, many factories don't even have the lights turned on. They don't have the lights on. They're just running on robotics. Now, what I mean is to say, you don't need as many people in the factory as what you used to. So it's not as big of a handicap. You might need, say, have robots producing products, and we're seeing robots working on automotive industry production lines, and that's happening very, very quickly. So I think actually Australia is in a position to do what you said, because now we don't need to have 500,000 staff at a factory or 50,000. You can reduce that down and have a lot of automation going on. Plus, we do have one advantage, and that is we have a lot of sun. And obviously, solar and batteries is the cheapest form of energy worldwide, especially if you have access to constant sun like Australia does.
Yeah.
So electricity for many businesses is their number one cost, especially manufacturing. So we have this thing where automation is in place. We don't have to worry so much about having to hire all these people. Plus, we have access to the cheapest form of energy. Like you said before, solar is way cheaper in Australia than it is in the United States. So I agree. I 100% agree with you. It's totally logical.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
Anyway.
Robin Denholm, and she's obviously a very intelligent lady.
Yeah, and she's Australian. Go us. Yeah. The chairwoman of Tesla, for goodness sake. She's an Aussie. So good on her for advocating and hopefully doing a little bit of the shenanigans, the old razzle dazzle you need to do Australian politicians here.
All right, so thanks so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. And as per usual, subscribe if you haven't, and maybe share this with that friend who's needs to know what you just learned. Very much appreciated, and it's all for free. If you want to see early access, check out on my Ko-fi page. Super thanks is more than welcome, and otherwise, YouTube thinks you might like one of these videos here. So check out these links. Hope to see you real soon, and again, thanks for watching.